My beloved brothers and sisters, before we begin diving into these principles, I want to speak to your heart for a moment. We live in a time where financial pressure has become one of the heaviest burdens many families carry. People work long hours, juggle responsibilities, and try to hold everything together, often in silence. Sometimes we wonder if we're doing enough, earning enough, saving enough, or even if we're falling behind. But Jesus understood the stress that money brings long before the modern world existed. He spoke about it not to make people feel overwhelmed, but to guide them toward peace, wisdom, and a healthier way of living. His teachings were never meant to shame anyone. They were meant to free people from the fear and confusion that money can create. So as we explore these principles together, come with an open heart. Let this message breathe life into you, not pressure. Allow yourself to learn, to reflect, and to grow gently and steadily. When Jesus taught that faithfulness with small things leads to greater things, he was revealing a truth that applies to every aspect of life, including finances. Many people wait for the big moment, the big income, the big opportunity, or the big breakthrough before they start caring about how they manage what they already have. But Jesus flipped this thinking upside down. He showed that growth begins with honoring what is already in your hands, no matter how small it may look to you. This principle reminds us not to despise our starting point. Maybe you're in a season where every dollar seems to vanish the moment it arrives. Maybe you feel that what you earn is not enough to build anything meaningful, but Jesus invites you to shift your focus from the size of the resource to the posture of the heart that manages it. When you honor what you have, you learn discipline, responsibility, and intention. These habits prepare you to handle more without fear, waste, or anxiety. This mindset sets us free from comparison. The world constantly tries to convince us that success is measured by having more than the next person. But Jesus never measured people by their wealth. He cared about their wisdom. He looked at the heart behind the action. This means that whether you have a little or a lot, your value doesn't change. What matters is how you use what you've been given. When you embrace this truth, you no longer feel small because of your income or ashamed because of your starting point. Instead, you feel empowered to grow with what you have right now. And when you start being intentional, tracking your spending, creating a simple plan, making thoughtful decisions, your life slowly begins to shift. Faithfulness in small steps opens the door for bigger blessings. There is also a quiet peace that comes from learning contentment. We live in a culture where every advertisement screams, "You need more to be happy." But Jesus taught that life is much deeper than the things we accumulate. He wasn't telling us to reject nice things or avoid better opportunities. He was protecting us from becoming controlled by a never-ending chase. The desire for more is natural, but the obsession with more is exhausting. When we're always comparing our home, our car, our clothes, our vacations, our income, or our lifestyle to someone else's, we lose sight of our blessings. Contentment is not the same as complacency. It doesn't mean you stop wanting to grow. It simply means you are no longer enslaved to the idea that happiness is somewhere outside of what you already have. When you learn contentment, financial decisions become clearer. You no longer spend to impress people who aren't paying your bills. You no longer fall into debt trying to live a life that doesn't match your reality. You no longer measure your worth by what you own. Instead, you make choices based on peace, purpose, and wisdom. Contentment brings clarity. It helps you walk away from unnecessary expenses. It helps you build a financial foundation that is not based on competition, but on stability. When your heart is content, you stop living in reaction to pressure and start living from a place of intention. This principle also invites us to slow down. Many people make poor financial decisions when emotions are high stress, insecurity, impatience, or the desire to impress. Contentment creates space for calm thinking. It gives you time to ask, do I really need this? Or will this help my future? Or is this purchase coming from desire or from insecurity? When you approach money from a peaceful mindset, you naturally make wiser choices. Then comes the powerful truth of generosity. Jesus taught that giving is not about losing, but about expanding your heart, expanding your perspective, and expanding your capacity to receive. Generosity isn't about how much you give. It's about the spirit in which you give. Even a small act of kindness carries great value when it comes from a sincere heart. Generosity reminds us that we are connected to one another. It softens the grip that fear sometimes has on our finances. Many people hold onto their money tightly because they are afraid of not having enough. But Jesus teaches that when you open your hand to bless someone else, you are also opening your life to a flow of blessing that is bigger than what you could create on your own. Generosity transforms the heart. It shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Instead of thinking, I must hold on to everything because I don't know what will happen, you begin to trust that there is enough. You begin to trust that giving doesn't reduce your life, it enriches it. Generosity doesn't always involve money. Sometimes it's time, encouragement, support, or small gestures that carry great meaning. When your life becomes marked by generosity, you begin to see opportunities instead of obstacles. You begin to recognize that every blessing you give has a way of returning to you in unexpected ways. Financial generosity also breaks the power of selfishness and anxiety. When you give even a little, you train your heart to resist fear. You remind yourself that your identity is not tied to what you keep, but to who you are. You become a person whose life overflows instead of a person who constantly feels empty. This shift influences how you make decisions, how you view people, and how you conduct yourself with money. Generosity builds trust in God, trust in yourself, and trust in the process of sowing and reaping. It opens doors that money alone cannot open. Doors of favor, relationships, opportunity, and peace. When we look deeper into the teachings of Jesus, we find that generosity is not simply a financial act, but a spiritual posture. It points your heart toward gratitude instead of stress, toward compassion instead of competition. A generous soul sees possibilities that a fearful soul can't recognize. When you give, you create connection. You remind yourself that the world is not as cold, selfish, or limited as it sometimes feels. Every time you give, no matter the size, you declare that you believe in a world where goodness flows back and forth, and this becomes a powerful anchor in your financial life. It stabilizes you when fear tries to overwhelm your thinking. It keeps you rooted when the world tries to convince you that hoarding and isolating yourself is the only way to survive. Jesus teaches us that giving isn't losing, it's planting. And what we plant has a way of returning in ways we never expected. This principle also trains your heart to see value in people rather than possessions. When you become generous, your perspective shifts. You no longer see money as a wall that separates you from others, but as a tool that can bring comfort, hope, or strength to someone who needs it. You begin to understand that money carries purpose when it moves, not when it sits still. You begin to appreciate that every dollar you use has the power to produce something meaningful: stability, healing, safety, encouragement, opportunity. This mindset allows you to look at your resources through a wider lens. Instead of constantly asking, how much do I have? You begin to ask, how much impact can I make with what I have? This shift brings a deeper sense of fulfillment, far greater than the temporary excitement of spending on things that fade. A principle that naturally flows from this is the ability to live intentionally instead of impulsively. Jesus taught people to think ahead, to build wisely, to make choices with purpose rather than emotion. In our world today, so many financial struggles come from rushed decisions, impulse buying, or reacting out of insecurity. When you learn to pause, reflect, and consider your long-term well-being, you gain control over your financial future. Intentional living means understanding that every decision you make is a seed. Your spending, your saving, your giving, your habits. Each one grows into a future result. Nothing is random, nothing is meaningless. The life you are building is shaped by the choices you make daily, even the small ones you hardly notice. Jesus invites us to choose with wisdom, not pressure, with clarity, not confusion. Living Intentionally also means being honest with yourself. Sometimes people ignore their financial reality because it feels too stressful to face, but hiding from the truth never creates progress. Jesus taught the importance of truth because truth is what sets us free. When you tell the truth about your finances, your spending, your debt, your habits, you give yourself a foundation to build on. Even if the truth is uncomfortable, it becomes the starting point for transformation. And once you know where you stand, you can begin shaping where you want to go. This honesty leads to structure. Structure leads to progress, and progress leads to peace. Peace is one of the greatest gifts that comes from following the financial wisdom of Jesus. Peace doesn't always mean having a large bank account or a perfect financial plan. Peace means knowing you are walking in wisdom, making thoughtful decisions, and growing with purpose. When your financial life is shaped by faithfulness, contentment, generosity, and intentionality, you stop living in constant fear. You stop worrying about every unexpected expense. You stop feeling insecure when things fluctuate. Instead, you develop resilience. You learn how to adapt without falling apart. You learn how to maintain direction even when circumstances shift. And you learn that your worth, your identity, and your future are not defined by dollar amounts, but by the strength of your character and the wisdom of your choices. Another powerful truth found in the teachings of Jesus is that your financial journey is deeply connected to your inner life. When your heart is anxious, your financial habits reflect that anxiety. Bending to cope, avoiding responsibilities, or rushing into decisions. When your heart is insecure, your finances reflect insecurity, buying to impress, chasing status symbols, or trying to fix emotional gaps with material things. But when your heart is grounded in peace and clarity, your finances begin to stabilize as well. Jesus understood that money and the heart are deeply intertwined. That is why he spoke about money so often, not to raise fear, but to realign the heart. When the heart is aligned, the behavior follows. This means that true financial strength doesn't start in the wallet. It starts in the mind and spirit. It starts with believing that you are capable of growth, capable of change, capable of wisdom. It starts with forgiving yourself for past mistakes and choosing to move forward with purpose. It starts with letting go of the shame that the world attaches to financial struggles. Jesus never shamed people for having little or even for mismanaging much. His message was always one of redirection, not condemnation. He showed people a better way and invited them to walk in it. This is the same invitation extended to you today. No matter where you're starting, no matter what you've been through, no matter what mistakes you've made, you can build a healthier financial life beginning now. As these principles take root in your life, something beautiful happens. You begin to live with expectation instead of fear. You begin to trust that your future can look different from your past. You begin to believe that God can guide you, strengthen you, and provide for you in ways you never imagined. You begin to recognize opportunities that you once overlooked. You begin to make decisions that reflect your values rather than your emotions. And slowly, steadily, your financial life transforms, not just on paper, but in the peace you feel, the clarity you gain, and the confidence you carry. This journey is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about growth. It's about allowing the wisdom of Jesus to reshape the way you think about money, responsibility, generosity, and purpose. When you embrace these principles, you begin to build a life that is not controlled by fear or comparison. Instead, it becomes guided by intention, strengthened by faith, and enriched by generosity. You step into a life where your finances serve your purpose instead of draining your peace. My beloved brothers and sisters, may these truths settle in your heart and guide your steps. May they bring you clarity where there has been confusion, confidence where there has been fear, and direction where there has been uncertainty. May they empower you to build a financial life that reflects wisdom, strength, and peace. And may you always remember that you are not alone on this journey. There is guidance, there is grace, and there is a path forward, one wise step at a time.